Kia ora and welcome to everyone that's here. And great to have my colleague Kim from the Deep South to come and talk to us about Tuturu and that sort of part of the partnership. So it's been a partnership between the Youth Gaming and Gambling and Aoteroa New Zealand focus that Tuturu has on its current resource, and then the CensusAtSchool team and data collection. So I'm going to pass it over to Kim to do some initial introduction to you and us about Tuturu and what it does. Do you want to start with that?
Yeah, sure, that's fine. Kia ora koutou, ko Kim Goitleb tōku ingoa he kai hautu Tūturu ki Ōtepoti. Kia ora, I'm Kim. I'm a Tuturu manager down here in Ōtepoti, Dunedin, and I work with secondary schools, health providers, health services, police, those kind of people, and I have a national role in Tuturu as well. So we're here today to talk about the Youth Gaming and Gambling in Aoteroa New Zealand resource, which was introduced earlier this year. It's a cross-curriculum resource designed for social studies, maths and statistics and health. Learning inquiries and activities address gaming and gambling in relation to young people in the community in Aotearoa. And the reason we came to this place was that gaming and gambling in young people, unlike, for instance, alcohol and other drugs, which was kind of our focus initially, has been flying under the radar for a very long time. But it's become really obvious that particularly in the secondary school population, among secondary school boys in particular, gaming and gambling is really common, and especially sports betting. So, you know, having a resource that teaches young people to, well, enables young people to develop their critical thinking around gaming and gambling makes sense. So it has a year 10 focus, but can be adapted for other year levels as well. Just a little bit of a introduction about Tuturu and what it is. It's a modern approach to young people's wellbeing. It brings together health providers in schools so young people are better equipped to work with and prepare students for the complexities of modern life. So I want to see, I've been doing Tuturu for a while now, probably almost 10 years. And what I see us as is a real bridge between education and health, trying to break down those silos. It aspires for all young people to feel connected to and positive about their school, and we work in 4 main areas: school climate, pastoral care, professional learning and development, and curriculum resources for years 9 to 13. Next slide, please, Pip. So what works? What we know is that critical analysis helps young people to distinguish truth from unhealthy or misleading content. And there's a lot of evidence to show that young people need to develop that skill so they can confidently navigate the modern world. And the curriculum resources from Tuturu provide students with evidence-based best practice resources that enable them to investigate and discuss issues around hauora, gaming and gambling, mental health, alcohol and other drugs, so they can make well-informed decisions. And they're evidence-based resources. They're not ones that have just come out of thin air from somewhere. Next slide, please, Pip. So just you'll need to click through them. I just wanted to show you briefly the resources that are available in Tuturu. Supporting student-led action is a really good way to get engagement with students. We do Board of Trustees training, considering a whole school approach, where we work with the boards to have a look at their decision-making processes, but also their personal values and beliefs, because that's what they base their decisions on. The marketing of vaping products, that's a no-brainer given what's happening with vaping in schools. Making changes is a resource around helping young people to change behaviour. The support plan is a really good example of a plan that we developed for pastoral teams to work with young people when they need a bit of extra support. It's based on junior health, so they're familiar with the context and the language that are being used. And there's a whole lot of webinars available on the website as well. And as we know, health is only compulsory in years 9 and 10. So just when students need it most, they're not getting that health messaging. So it makes sense to be learning about areas of hauora across the curriculum. And when those topics are taught across the curriculum, it opens the door for young people to have those discussions later. And what we know is that when those discussions are normalised within classrooms, students are much more likely to seek help, and seek help earlier, because that's what we want, right? We want them to come to us before things have got bad. So there's lots of resources available. They're all free on our website. The next slide, please, Pip. So we're helping students make informed wellbeing decisions which build critical thinking and connect students to support. We're using real data to explore youth engagement with substances and behaviours. And as we know, the CensusAtSchool data is really engaging for students because they're pretty much looking at not necessarily their own data, but data that is relevant to them and their context in their life. And we're embedding education on alcohol, drugs, gambling, and gaming across the curriculum. And I think that's about it from me, really. I'm happy to answer any questions from anybody at any point. Over to you, Pip.
Great, thanks, Kim. And if anybody has any quick questions for Kim now, just unmute yourself and ask them while it's top of mind. Okay, I did my count to 7. All right, so I'm going to now just go through the materials that we've developed with the statistics focus. And so we'll do some of them, we'll go a little bit deeper, and then others we will just have a quick look at them. Before we do that, I'm just going to drop, just give me a second. I'm going to drop this link into the chat. And if you want to open up, I just got to find the chat. Where's my chat? I'll drop that into the chat for you. If you want to open this document up, it just has links to things that we will be referencing during the session. And I say we're going to go to this Google Sheets or Google Slides or whatever. These are the links that you'll need. All right, so that's just a one-stop shop, and you're very welcome to share that with anyone that you want to at a later date. All right, so I'm going to start with, there are 4 activities that are in the resource that have come from a maths and stats focus or stats. And the first one is called Startling Statements. And this one here is designed to actually engage the students in the topics. And so we look at the data from a couple of research reports, and then they do an activity where they basically get the statements on their backs, and then they go around and they collect some data from people in the class. And the data is that the students, and I'll show you in a minute, the students are trying to give them an answer to the statement that's on the back of them. And then we get them to do some stats with it and have a look at it. And then we give them the data to say, well, this is what it was. How close was the class guesses to what the actual data was? The big thing about the 2 activities, and again, this could be something that you do could be done in social studies or in health, or you could do it in the maths classroom, connecting in with social studies and health when they're doing the topics. But the idea is that we're just getting them to start to think about the data or the context that we're going to set the work in that we're doing. And so this is what they look like. You can see these are just a couple of examples. The one on the left is from the data about gaming behaviours. And the gaming behaviours comes from a research report, Pacifica Youth Online Gaming and Gambling Research. Are online video games a gateway to problem gambling among Pacifica youth? So that's the gaming set of sampling statements. And the ones over here, 5 and 6, are from a variety of reports on gambling, including, as you'll see there, the Gambling Survey, Department of Internal Affairs, and also from the Youth the Youth 2000 surveys that are around. So we have a mixture of sources that we pulled the statements from. And you can see there that when it's on their back, the students are going around and they're getting responses from people, and the people or the other students are saying what they think the answer to those questions are. So if I had this on my back, I wouldn't know initially, and then students would be giving me numbers as to what they think the percentage of adults are. So that's sort of like it's interacting with like, what do we think? And then we do some work with the data, and then we know, they have a better idea about what that is. So hopefully a little more of introduction to the topic. We're not going to do that, obviously, because that's a real in-person activity rather than an online one, but that's there. And there is no, I'm not going to say there's a similar activity in the one I did last time. I can't remember. No, it's all good. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to talk briefly about the second activity. And again, I'm just going to talk to this one because it's really stuff that we've done as stats teachers for a long, long time. But what we're going to do is we're going to start looking at the CensusAtSchool variables that are already categorized or numerical and really easy to work with, and then we'll come to the qualitative ones later on. So in activity 2, it's called money teens spend on online games, but we don't just focus on that information. So the activity starts with them exploring the data that is available that has a focus in the area that we were looking at. So we've got years, region, gender, and then we've got age, so they can think about those as demographics they may want to look at. And then we look at the variables that we've picked up are enough sleep, device in bed, how much they spend on gaming, and do they think gaming is a problem for others they know of their age. That's sort of where that one comes from. And so we start off with the usual thing with secondary data. So we want them to interrogate the secondary data. So, who was the data collected from? How was it collected? And then looking at the variables. And so there's sort of a structured support to take them through this. And if you're, not that I want to talk assessment, but, the kids have got to talk about where the data came from and what was measured. This is a really good way to do that. So, for example, we know all of the data from CensusAtSchool comes from an observational study. In this particular set of data we have year 9 to 11 students only in the data set. The data was collected by the CensusAtSchool team, et cetera, So this is being collected over the next 2 years, and we talk about the purpose. And then the students can go into, and they can individually in groups or individually look at the different variables. And this just shows you the sorts of things that they would need to know. I would be getting the students to answer these questions, not just showing them the responses. But you can see here, here's our variable names, the different survey questions, how it was measured, whether it has units or not, and what the type of data is. And most of the data is categorical, with the only numerical one being the estimated spend in the past month. And so we then talk in this one, we also talk about what makes a good data visualization. And then we talk about, setting them up for what should be in a report. And, so when they have done the investigation, whether it's on devices in bed or the amount of money spent on gaming. And then we finish it off. These are the slides from the resource with an example of, hey, write a report, it should be a page. So that's that one there. But it's something that we should have, sort of think of this one as, yes, we're using the current context of gaming and gambling to do the exploration, but this is things that should be, from a teaching perspective, sort of our bread and butter. We know how these work, but here's the new variables, here's the new data that we can work with. What I want to focus on now, though, is the qualitative data that we've got in the questionnaire. And we had this last time as well. So we had in the alcohol and video online one that we did last time, we had questions like, in 5 words, describe. And so that's what we're going to look at today. How do we go about working with our students to explore qualitative data, which basically means we've got, if you've got 500 pieces of data, you've probably got 500 different responses. Not quite, but it is very different to what we may be used to, where things fit into maybe 5 to 7 categories, like we have with, did you use a device in bed? do you think gaming's a problem, etc. Okay, so we're going to have a look at that. And with this activity, what I've done is obviously we've set it up around the PPDAC cycle, and it has a connect to two into social studies and to health education. So again, everything we're doing in the stats part can connect in with our colleagues in social studies and health education. And, Kim's already alluded to that, but I'd really encourage you, if you're looking at using some of these activities, talk to your colleagues in other subject areas and see if they're aware of it and if they might want to do it, and if there is some way that you can work collectively with them. You can do them without doing that, but I think the richness in showing the students that things go across subject areas is really powerful, and it's an opportunity for you to do that. So with this activity, and we look at some investigative questions, and I'm going to focus on one of them today. And the question that I'm looking at is like, what are the main reasons why New Zealand year 9 to 11 teens game? And we're going to, and the students may decide that they want to focus on a year level, but we could also collectively look across the 3 year levels. So what I'm going to just remind you is that we would do the same thing again. So we'd talk about, what the variable was, how it was collected, and then we're going to just quickly look at those. So those are the different contexts. So we've looked at these ones potentially in an earlier activity, but the ones that we're going to do here is look at these 2 questions, and we're going to just look at one today, but there's multiple responses and the students had to use 5 words or less. All right, so that's what we're going to look at. And that's where I'm going to finish being online on the slideshow and actually going to go into the data that we're going to work with. So let me just go here. So this link, this first one that says plan, I'd like you to click on that link, and that's going to take you to a spreadsheet. And how I've set this up is, you can see down the bottom here, I've rearranged it a little bit. This is a editable document that you can work on, but the actual original document is view only, and you'd have to make a copy for your class. But the idea is that you could split the kids into pairs. I think I've got 15 or so spreadsheets, and so they can go into any one doc. So I'm going to allocate you a spreadsheet each. So Michael, you can do, I'm going to give you can do 9D, or if I don't mind, you can do a year 9. Andrea, do you want to do either, you can choose from 10C or 10D, Olive, 10E or 10F, and Melissa, if you can pick one of the year 11 ones. All right, so if you want to just go into the particular spreadsheet that's yours, okay, so that's what you're going to work on. So I'll maybe take this 11F at the end, and I'm just going to see if I can do a split screen for a moment. And then what we do in this activity one is we start giving the students some strategies about how they might go around coding or theming this data. And so if you click into this second resource, or you don't have to, I'll pull it up. And this takes you through, or takes the students through, a step-by-step process about how they might use Excel or Google Sheets or whatever it is they're working in to do the theming. All right. So this is who have we got? We've got getting them to understand about the filtering. So I've set it up so this is already in a filter view. But if they don't know about that, they need to learn about putting the filter in. And then I just need to be clear that when I set this up, I've done this from the old data. So the example is from last year's census, because I was writing this before we had results from this year. So that's why the example doesn't look exactly like what you see there. All right, but what we're going to do is we're going to work with a gaming reason, and we just need to insert, for now, a column after it there. So we've got something to work on, because this is going to be where we'll start to do our coding. But what I want you to do initially is just to sort this from A to Z. All right, so just would work with gaming reason, and if you just sort from A to Z. And the idea here is that we want to just start to see what sort of themes are coming through just from a simple alphabetical sort. Okay, so I'm going to just give you maybe about a minute to just go through your list. And then if you could just in the chat drop in your themes that are coming up for you. All right, so just drop in the themes that are coming up for you. Okay, so we've got it looks like fun, boredom, friends, and I don't know is coming through as quite common. And so the idea of the of doing the qualitative is we just start by going through and saying, okay, which ones are we going to work with and agree as a class? And so when I did this down in Dunedin at NZAMP, I feel like we had way more examples, Kim, than what we've got here. And maybe I did the other one, I can't remember. But anyway, we're doing gaming reason. But let's say we agree that we're going to use fun. Now, do we decide that entertainment and fun is the same, or are they different things? So that's a conversation we can have as a class. And we obviously got the I don't know. And so we can initially do some of that sorting. So I might go, okay, I'm going to use fun, and I just use fun as one of my codes. So I can quickly go through any that just have the word fun, and I could sort that through, and that's fine. And that might be good, but there is actually a quicker way that we can do it rather than scrolling down, is I can go into here and I can filter. Which one am I wanting? Filter by condition. I'm going to filter by condition, and I'm going to use text contains, and I'm just going to write the word fun and go okay. And now what's happened is it's sorted that there with just all the statements that have fun in them somewhere. Okay, so I can quickly then just drag down and I can code those ones. All right. And then what I can do now is I can go back here and I can go back to none and go okay. And then I've got all my data in. And then what I can do on this one, sorry, I'm talking as I'm working on this column here, because I've already coded these ones, I can now remove the fun so that all that I see is the not yet coded. And then I can go back and go, okay, what do I want to take out next? And so maybe I might want to take out all the I don't knows. So again, I'll go filter by condition and go text contains. Maybe I'll just put in don't. See what happens, go okay. And then this way I can take all those out, and I'm just going to use the abbreviation for now. And then if you're working alongside with me, you'll see that I've got those. So that's great. And I can go back and include everything. So take that out, go okay. And now again, I want to go in and I want to tick off this one. And so when I come back to my column that I'm still trying to sort, what have I done? Why have I got the fun still there? Pick those up. It's weird. Fun. You know, when something happens, you think, why has it done that? But it missed some. Anyway, maybe I didn't scroll down far enough. Cool. All right. I'm going to stop screen sharing with that. But hopefully you get the idea. There's lots of ways. This just takes you through the instructions on how to do that. All right. And then you can just keep going and filtering until you've got only a few left, and then deciding maybe we just have another category or something at the end. All right. So I'm going to actually just stop for a minute and just say, are there any questions?
No, but I'll admit that I got lost.
Okay.
Trying to do the filtering. I think I filtered in the wrong column. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think I might have done that too. But the first thing is that initially we just sort the column that we're interested in. So that was the A to Z to get our ideas of our themes. And then because we chose fun, we can filter by the condition where we are looking for the text containing fun. Let me do that again and go, okay. And so obviously I didn't drag this down far enough. And I think so I can copy. Now I've coded all of these ones with fun. So I firstly need to put everything back. So I take the condition off. So I go none and go okay. And that brings me all the data back in my main column. And then if I go into the coding column, what I want to do is remove the ones I've already coded. So I'm going to tick off fun and go okay. So now when I come back to my reason column, I've only got left the ones I haven't coded. But for some reason, it's not picking up. So I had that to have fun. I don't know why it didn't pick that up when I did, text contains fun. And go, okay. I don't know why. And maybe I had, because of something I had in this one, maybe I had to because this one's also got a filter on. Maybe that's causing me problems. I don't know. But I can just keep going. These are some more fun. So I can do that. But before I do the sorting in that one, I have to bring everything back. So I have to clear it. So I've got everything in there. And then you'll see that those blank ones now have disappeared because I've got this. So I can select all and go, okay, and that's got everything back in there. But if I want to just work on the ones that I haven't yet coded, I can turn those ones off and I'm left with what's yet to be coded. Does that help, Michael?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So that activity in and of itself, that could be 2-3 lessons. And, it might be, so somebody said, what about if they have a double code? So that's a good question. And so it might be that the students decide that they'll do 2 coding columns so that things can be counted in both, because they've also got to think about how are they going to, graph this and show this in a way that they can then answer the question that they were trying to answer. And so they may have multiple coding, or they may decide to have, like they do it for fun and then they do it for boredom. And then so there'll be some people that are fun and boredom. So it's just thinking about how they do that and which one has priority. So if you have 2 codes, do you code for fun as a first priority and then boredom as a second, or the other way around? So there's lots of decisions that need to be made about how they're going to do it. And the idea of the big spreadsheet is that initially we're only working on 150, whereas if we bring everything together, we've got 1,500 students. So we can actually have, we need big amounts of data to make decisions about categorical variables, but each individual pair is only working with a small amount of data. And that's where the conversations about what we decide to code and how we decide to code it is really important for the students to have, so that we have an agreement. And that will take a little bit of time. And even just learning how to manipulate the spreadsheets and work with them is a really good skill for students to have. Okay, so the last activity that I'm going to talk to is activity 4. And let me so one of the things that I wanted to do with the resource when I created it was to obviously take the opportunity to work with something around gambling without being gambling, because it's really tricky, like, can we use gambling in our classes? And probably not really wanting to do too much around it, especially with younger students. But we can explore this idea of combinations and permutations with the idea of a lotto style game. And so that's what this activity does. And click on here. So it connects to social studies and health education. So all of the stats activities do. And then let me just get down here what I want to do. So, right. So There is 3 sessions that I've set up in here, and teachers may take more or they might choose to only do 1 or 2 of them, but we start off with just looking at a simple example, so 2 numbers from a pool of 6, and then we move into just doing it by hand, basically, so working in active iconic sort of hands-on stuff. Then in the second session we look at how we might do that using technology. And then the third session is we're going to kind of more generalizing the idea of how we work out the combinations and the permutations. Okay. So session 1, we have a look at, so what is the game of chance? How do we model it? And so we go through and we have an investigative question. So we're not asking them to create it. We're working with it. So how does the probability of winning change with different numbers of draws and pool sizes in a lotto style game? So using the language of number of draws and the pool sizes, so I'm drawing 2 balls from a pool of 6, or I'm drawing 3 balls or 3 numbers from a pool of 10, or whatever it is. So it's just using that, trying to use that language consistently through the session that we're doing. And then we can talk about the plan. So how might we do this? So we can model doing this by hand to start with. So that idea of either using balls or paper, so they could fold paper up, and then we put them into a hat or equivalent. And if you've got one of those, those lotto type things, that has the balls in it, you could use that as well, but I don't. So I have my balls, I put them into a hat, and then I draw my 2 numbers out and I record them. All right, so it's just that doing it manually, going through that idea of drawing 2 numbers from 6. And then we can do that 20 times. And so when I say they're doing that 20 times, they're doing that 20 times manually. All right, so they're putting them all back in, pulling the 2 numbers out, and then recording them. And then they collate what they get. And so the thing is that with their 20 trials, they may not have got all of the pairings, and that's kind of intentional as well, is that they go, oh, we can get these outcomes. But what we're hoping will come up is things like, when I had 4 and 3, and then I had 3 and 4, would I collate those as the same thing or as different things? So it's sort of getting those ideas of combinations, and how with a combination, the order doesn't matter, but later on when we look at a permutation, the order does. And then they can look at their results from their group, and then we can bring all the information together and get the class results, and they can do that on a board or using electronic means, however you want to do it, and then they can do the graph of the class results and then talk about it. So that's pretty much the first session, so hands-on, understanding the context. And then the second session, we can start looking at using technology to do the same thing. All right. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to our teacher page, which I'm going to pull over. That's my workshop plan. Teacher resource, here we go. So if we go into here, right, so this is instructions on what to do. If you want to have a look at that there, and then alongside that, we can do this in CodeApp. So there's 2 things to open. And so let me just try and it's here as well. All right, so in the resource, it does give step-by-step instructions. And so you can choose to either share this with your students, or you can use this as your own guide as you talk your students through. But if you want to follow along with me, and I know it's pretty tricky if you've only got a single screen, but maybe you can have my picture on one side and yours on the other. But we're going to create a new document in CodeApp. And if you've never used CodeApp before, that's fine. I'll just tell me to stop, say I've got lost. But we create a new document, and what we have in here is we have some plugins. And if you go into simulation and click on sampler, this will give you a little tool that we can use. All right. And what we're going to do is we're going to set this up initially in the tab to select 2 items. So each time we want to select 2 items, and we're going to do this for 5 times. So they did 20, but we're just going to do 5 to start with. And we're just doing this initially just to see what happens. All right, so if I now need to change some information. So this has got A, and B. Well, I actually want the numbers 1 to 6 because we're modeling the balls 1 to 6. So we can click on the 3 dots here. And then in this little pop-up window, we type 1 to 6 and click OK. And you'll notice now that we've got 6 balls in here. And because we want to see what's happening, we're going to go up to the top here and we're going to change the speed to slow. So we're really clear on what's happening there. And then when we, we've noted 6 balls. Yep, we've done that. So then what we want to do is just think about when I do this and manually I take 1 ball out and then I take the next ball out. I don't put it back in. So we have to change it. So rather than it being with replacement, we have to make it without replacement. So that's really right. And then once we've got that done, we can click start. And there's a whole lot of stuff going on. So when you do click start, I want you to have a look at what happens. So the output comes up here and then information gets put in here, and then notice how the number of balls is changing. So let me just do mine and then you can run yours, but you'll see that a number's been selected, it's been put out there. Second number's been selected, there's only 4. That goes into my table. We start again. All right, so it's selecting 3 and 2. So if you want to just run that yourself and get yourself 5 samples.
Do you want us to put the results anywhere?
No, not yet. We'll just really wanted you to get a sense of what happens. All right, and you'll see in the table here, if I just pull this out a little bit, you'll see that this is my first experiment. My sample size was 2. I've taken 5 samples, or I've done 5 trials. I'd be using that language with the students. And then this is the output that I've got over here from each of the trials. So if I look at my first trial, I got a 4 and then a 1 and then 3 and 6 and so on. Okay, so that's just repeating what we did manually, now doing it with technology. And so we can do this a lot faster. And so what we want to do is we want to change some things. So firstly, we can change the number of samples that we do. So say let's just do 100. You could make it 1,000, but let's just do 100, say. But the biggest thing we want to do is we want to change this from slow to fastest. And then if you click on start, you'll see that it very quickly now does the 100 samples.
Pip, Andrea
Yeah.
said she's just totally lost. Have you got some advice for teachers who maybe are not sure how to use this?
So Andrea, if it is something that you probably want to do a couple of times by yourself, and that I'm pretty confident that because I know that lovely Abby went through and checked the instructions for me, and Abby's our team leader for the project that we did, and so she's she's not a teacher and everything. So try doing it through using the instructions and see how you go. But seriously, if you get stuck, just send me an email and we can just have a quick Zoom. I'm really happy to do one-on-one, just, because I think once you get your head around it, it's relatively straightforward. It's just the first time it's like, what's going on here? So have a go with the instructions and then come back to me if it's still not making sense. But I can just go through quickly again. We look in simulation sampler is where we got this box. And in this box here, this is what we tell our tool to do. All right, so I made my 1 to 6 using the 3 dots here. So you can see there's the 6 balls. I'm collecting 2 numbers. So this is my draw. I'm taking a draw of 2 from 6, and I have to make sure it's without replacement. And if at any time, if you want to start from scratch, so say you go, oh, I've got it, maybe I made this 3 by mistake, you can clear data. And then if you click start, that will give you a brand new set of data. All right. I also tell the kids about the clearing data, because once they clear it, it's gone. So they need to think about that as well. All right. So I'm just going to go back to my PowerPoint. So there's that technology aspect of it, and then we can then look at our results. And so there is some little bits and pieces that we do to just get these numbers so they look like this. Because if I look at, sorry, let me just go back to my CODAP doc. If I have a look here, if I was just to graph, so in CODAP I can click graph, and if I graph the output, I just get the numbers. It's not very useful, is it? Because I want pairs of numbers. So there are a few little things that we need to do in there to pair the numbers up. And I'm not going to do that live, because I know I'll make a mess of it, because it's just one of those things I've got to think about. But one of the things we can do firstly is we can just sort in our pairs, so that each of the pairs, that then now from smallest to largest, because that's going to be important later on. And I think I do a combine. I really don't, wasn't planning to do it, but I think we do a join. We can do it, edit formula. Let me just check the functions. I think it's a string function. Combine is what I want to do. So I want to combine. I think I do output and go apply. Oh, look at that. I did remember. So what I've done is because it's no good to me just having the individual numbers here. That doesn't help me answer my question about the combinations. And so I need to combine them. And now if I graph the combine, and then I need to make this categorical. There we go. So if I graph the combine and make it categorical, we can see there, how I've got those different ones. All right. So I'm going to stop with that there and go back to the PowerPoint. So we can do some analysis with it, and then we can revisit. So we revisit the question. So we were originally looking at 2 from 6. But what now if we were to look at 2 numbers from 8? And so the resource takes us through looking at that. And then we can look at 3 numbers from 6. So we can firstly go 2 from 6, 2 from 8, 2 from 10. And then we can think about, what about 3 from 6 or 4 from 6? And so we're getting them to look at those. So that's pretty much that activity. It does on the 3rd session, we do look at actually the mathematics behind it. So, so if I'm choosing 2 from 6, I've got a choice of 6 for the first number and 5 from the second. But hey, 1 and 2 and 2 and 1 are the same. So I need to divide by 2. And then building up that idea of the permutation without going to the permutation formula or the combination formula, but how we would look at how permutations and combinations are different. All right, so I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to hand back to Kim just to wrap us up.
Kia ora anō. I just wanted to say we provide training for non-health teachers as well. So I think what we know in schools is that teachers who aren't trained in health sometimes find it hard to have these conversations with young people, because if you're going to be teaching about gaming and gambling, you've got to be aware that those conversations are going to happen in your classroom. So Tuturu provides a lot of professional learning development for staff. It's probably a large part of the work that we do actually, and we do it around alcohol and other drugs as well, to prepare staff so they've got a little bit more understanding of the impacts of young people and youth development around that, so that you do feel more confident in your maths classroom or your social studies classroom covering these topics. We have Tuturu providers in Tamaki Makaurau, Waikato, Ōtautahi, and here in Ōtepoti, Dunedin. If you wanted to contact us at all, we do lots of work with lots of schools throughout the country. It looks really different in every school. Down here, we're working with schools in North, South, and Central Otago as well, and we're just off to Invercargill next week to the alternative education hui, of all the providers showing up there. So our work is very flexible and has wide coverage. So if you have any questions or you want to know some more, check out our website, email that admin email there, and I think Pip's got our emails on the next slide as well. And go for it with the resource. Like I said in the chat, the resources are free. You just need to set up an account, and that's because it's really good for us to track who's using the resources. Yeah, that's all for me. Thanks for coming today, and thank you, Pip, for doing your wonderful mahi again. Kia ora.
Hey, just before everyone heads off, I'd like to thank you both for your time on behalf of the Auckland Maths Association.